In this lesson, we're going to demonstrate how to configure AAA on a TACACS server. This lab will consist of 3 devices: a 4331 router, a PC that will act as the client, and a server that will function as our TACACS server. Next, we're going to connect all of these devices with the appropriate network media. Like so. And then I am going to configure the IP addresses for each. So 192.168.1.2 will be the IP address of our TACACS server, /24 is the CIDR that we need, and .1 will be the default gateway. Okay, so 0/0/0 is the interface of the router facing our TACACS server. So enable conft interface 0/0/0, IP address 192.168.1.1, 255.255.255.0 is its subnet mask. Now shut down to bring up the interface. And next I'm going to enter the other gigabit Ethernet interface facing the PC. So IP address, I'll give it one of 172.16.1.1, 255.255.255.0 will be its subnet mask. And no shutdown. Close the window, open up the PC, go to IP configuration, 172.16.1.10 will be its IP address, subnet mask /24, and the default gateway will be .1. Excellent. So with that done, I will proceed to configuring the AAA framework on our TACACS server. So I will navigate to Services, AAA, I will enable the framework, and I will change the port to 49 because it is TCP port 49 that TACACS uses. The name of the client, which is the router, will be router 1, and the client IP address will be the router's IP address of this network, which is 192.168.1.1. Secret, we'll keep it simple, and I'll just put down secret, and the server type will be TACACS. And then under user setup, I will create an admin user with a password test1234!. And now I will go back to the router and enable the AAA framework with the AAA new module command. Next, I will define a TACACS server block. 192.168.1.2 is the IP address that we associated with the interface of our TACACS server earlier. Key, we put down secret. So now the router is aware of the TACACS server that it has to reach out to for authentication requests. And then one other thing I need to do is to configure the way authentication will take place. So AAA authentication login, default group, TACACS, and then local. So what this command did was to configure the router to reach out to the TACACS server first upon receiving an authentication request from the client. And then, if for whatever reason it cannot reach the TACACS server due to the fact that the server is temporarily unavailable or whether the link between the two devices is broken, it will fall back to its local user database and try to authenticate through there. I will save my changes, close the window, and if I open up a command prompt on my PC and I telnet into my router, I'm being prompted for my username first of all, and then password, which is test1234!. And voila, I am inside the router. thereby verifying that we have configured AAA with TACACS successfully. However, if, for whatever reason, let's say that something happens to the link between our TACACS server and the router, and it breaks, what do you think would happen? Let me exit out of there first and fast forward the time. So with the link broken between the two devices, what do you think would happen if I tried to telnet into the router once more? So again, I supply the same details of my admin user, and if I fast forward the time so that we don't need to wait needlessly, I get an error saying timeout expired. Why? Because, as you could probably have imagined, due to the broken link between the TACACS server and the router is no longer able to retrieve any information related to any identities from the AAA server. And so it tries to fall back to its own local user database. But if I go to the router and run show user, there are 0 users in this router's user database. And so without the router being able to verify the identity of the client, telnet fails. So what I need to do is to go back into configuration mode on the router and create the admin user here as well. I'll give this user the full keys to the kingdom, full admin rights. I will also add the secret keyword, which means that the admin's password will not be displayed in plain text when running show running config. And then the password will be identical to the one configured in the TACACS server earlier. I will save my changes, close the window, fast forward the time, and if I go back to my PC, what do you think will happen this time if I try to telnet back into the router? Again, I'm being prompted for my username. I provide my password, fast forward it, and voila! This time I have successfully connected to the router, because even though the link between the TACACS server and the router is still broken, this time around the router is indeed able to fall back to its local user database. It sees the user admin, whose credentials are exactly the same as the ones configured on the TACACS server earlier, and telnet succeeds. That's all there is to configuring AAA on a TACACS server.